Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 Kern County Economic Summit. My name is Richard Chapman, President and CEO of the Kern Economic Development Corporation. The summit is a collaboration and partnership between Kern EDC, the Greater Bakersfield Chamber, and California State University, Bakersfield. Tonight's premier event will feature economists and their views on regional, national, and international trends as they impact Kern County's economy in 2021 and beyond. And now I'd like to welcome our platinum sponsors, David Womack with Kaiser Permanente and Daniel Wolcott with Adventist Health, Bakersfield.
Hello, I'm Daniel Wolcott, President of Kern County Care Delivery for Adventist Health.
And I'm David Womack, Senior Vice President for Kaiser Permanente in Kern County.
As you all know, 2020 was a year of lockdowns, learnings, and love. In healthcare, we experienced some challenging times. But with COVID-19 vaccinations now taking place, there is hope for a brighter tomorrow.
As we look forward to the future, it's important to recognize that as healthcare providers, our two organizations are among Kern County's major employers.
Adventist Health has 3 medical centers in Bakersfield, Delano, and Tehachapi, as well as medical clinics and imaging centers. In addition to rural health clinics in Taft, Tehachapi, Mojave, and California City.
Kaiser Permanente has 10 medical office buildings that include primary and specialty care, mental health, and vision care located throughout Kern County. We provide a combined $182 million a year in employee salaries and physician compensation. Kaiser Permanente also pays other healthcare organizations for services. $177 million paid to local hospitals and physicians for services provided to Kaiser Permanente members. That's in addition to the $66 million for other local healthcare related services, such as ambulance, skilled nursing care, home health visits, and ambulatory surgeries.
The blessings received by these two companies are not taken for granted. In turn, each generously gives back to Kern County.
Annually, Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente contribute $66 million towards important social programs that target food insecurity, mental health, homelessness, and programs that promote healthy lifestyles and eating.
Together, Adventist Health and Kaiser Permanente help heal this community in ways that go beyond medical care, impacting the economic health of Kern County and its residents.
And when it comes your time for the COVID-19 vaccination, we hope you'll roll up your sleeve. That way we can all get back to life as it should be.
Good evening, and a warm welcome to our entire community to the 2021 Kern Economic Summit. Cal State Bakersfield is proud to be a co-presenter at the summit to explore the state of our local economy, where we are, where we're headed, and how to get there. But before we contemplate the future, we must make sense of the year we have had, a year like no other. The worldwide pandemic has left us with staggering losses of life, of jobs, of businesses, and entire industries. We come together on this warm spring night in a better place than we were a year ago, when we retreated from our daily lives to weather the storm. Today, we see signs of hope and a bright, reimagined future full of innovation on the horizon. Cal State Bakersfield students, alumni, faculty, and staff are a force for good in our community, and their finest hour was this year. In the healthcare sector, our students and alumni are caring for patients amid the largest public health crisis in our lifetimes. In business, agriculture, and energy, our graduates are working with the largest drivers in our economy and starting up businesses with their own entrepreneurial skills they honed right here at Cal State Bakersfield. And through research, CSUB students and faculty are working with our partners in the community to devise solutions to real-world problems. The results of a study commissioned by the California State University system offers a dramatic snapshot of Cal State Bakersfield's impact on our economy in the San Joaquin Valley. In 2019-20, CSUB spent a total of $347 million on capital expenditures, operational expenditures, auxiliary costs, and students. Through tax revenue, we contribute $29 million to state and local governments. Through labor income, we generate $160 million, and industry activity totals an astonishing $445 million. These metrics, though important, only hint at the most consequential investments Cal State Bakersfield makes to our community. People. It is our people that move us forward. They are leaders and contributors to our community with shared vision and value. And great news, nearly 70% of Cal State Bakersfield graduates stay right here in our region to live and serve. And now it is my pleasure to introduce two esteemed members of CSUB's faculty, both economics professors from the School of Business and Public Administration. Please welcome Dr. Richard Gearhart and Dr. Nyakundi Macheka.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I wish this could be in person, but I understand that we are still fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. Hopefully we're near the end. And what I want to present tonight is the impact of COVID-19 on Kern County. It's been dominating the news and dominating our lives for well over a year. So I thought it would be very good time to discuss it. So what is economic efficiency? Economic efficiency simply measures how effectively we're able to turn economic inputs into economic outputs. And so when we're doing this analysis, our outputs are negative COVID-19 related outcomes. ICU hospitalizations, deaths and cases. For COVID-19 cases, our inputs are measures of social mobility or movement, the average distance that you've traveled, the median time you've spent at home, as well as unemployment claims, which are measures of how often and how frequently people are traveling to work. For deaths and hospitalizations, our inputs are measures of population health and COVID-19 cases, as we understand that there are a lot of comorbidities associated with COVID-19 hospitalizations and deaths. And so we compare estimates where we add in another set of conditions, the daily tier, that purple tier, red tier, orange tier, and yellow tier that a county finds itself in on a given day or a given week. So what we're doing is we're comparing efficiency without taking into account these tiers, and then comparing it to efficiency where we do take it into account, these tiers. And this will tell us both if the tier system was effective, if it worked, and the magnitude of the effectiveness. It will also tell us whether or not, if the system was not effective, was it effective because they were poorly written laws, or was it not effective because we were so unprepared for the pandemic beforehand? So why do we bother? Well, California had one of the earliest COVID-19 social distancing policies in the United States. Our shelter-in-place order was slightly under a year ago, March 19th, 2020. And a number of papers, including some of mine, have found that early on, California's shelter-in-place order was highly effective. And some of my estimates find that having any social distancing policy, like we've seen in California for the past year, led to 104,000 fewer COVID-19 cases in California by September 1st, 2020. We actually had 700,000. So we reduced the total number of COVID-19 cases in California by 1 in 7. That's tremendous effectiveness of these policies. If we look at deaths, the social distancing policies led to nearly 1,500 fewer COVID-19 deaths by September 1st, 2020, when we had 13,150. Again, that's tremendous. That's 1,500 people who are no longer here today that would have been here. The impact of this shelter-in-place order increased over time, but at a lesser rate. We all know that COVID-19 grew at an exponential rate. So this simply means that the shelter-in-place order unfortunately got less effective over time. In the first 100 days of the pandemic, so until early June, having a shelter-in-place order led to 17% fewer COVID-19 cases and 11% fewer COVID-19 deaths. If we go to September 1st, which is nearly double the amount of time, almost 200 200 days into the pandemic, having a shelter-in-place order led to 14% fewer COVID-19 cases and only 3% fewer COVID-19 deaths. So the effectiveness of these policies waned considerably over time. And why? Why did these policies wane over time? Well, there are two main reasons. The first is economic uncertainty. In layman's terms, that's confusion. It was often hard to delineate what metrics the state government was using, the data that they were using, or the goals that they were desiring. What was considered a non-essential business versus an essential business was often a confusing distinction. But then there was also something called behavioral non-compliance, where people simply stopped listening to the rules and following along and decided that the economic costs of social distancing policies outweighed the economic benefits. And if we look at the graph, if we look at the average distance traveled based on the days, we see that initially in the first 50 days of the pandemic, people traveled much less. People respected the shelter-in-place orders and the other social distancing policies. But over time, people started to move more and more because they knew that the livelihoods that they were seeing cut short were more important than the health costs. Well, other states suffered from other issues, stopping COVID-19 social distancing policies too early. We know that's not the case in California, but that was also another consideration. And so our goal is to investigate whether the move to a colored tier system improved outcomes in California, allowing for more localized geographical decision-making at the county or regional level. So don't necessarily focus on the tables. The tables are important, but the interpretation of the tables, which is below, is much more important. So in Kern County, without the colored tier system, that 4-colored tier system that we've been in continuously since September, we would have seen 1,500 more COVID-19 cases. On February 1st, there were about 95,000 COVID-19 cases. It's a 1.6 percentage point improvement. Remember, from March until September, it was a 14 percentage point improvement. So the colored tier system was considerably less effective. There also would have been 1 fewer COVID-19 deaths. There were 626 on February 1st, 2021. We would have saved 1 life. We did save 1 life with this colored tier system. And if you look at that percentage point improvement, that's a 0.0009 percentage point improvement. It's negligible. But again, remember, the improvement was 10 percentage points between March and September. So unfortunately, the effectiveness of these policies decreased considerably. You know, we can maybe explain this by the fact that, oh, maybe people in Kern County specifically did not listen to the orders. Well, if we measure COVID-19 cases based on the median time spent at home, the red dots are Kern County, the blue dots are other California counties, we see that the result is not behavioral non-compliance just in Kern County. Citizens around the state resisted the orders, especially later on in the pandemic. And we see that the movement patterns in Kern County were similar to those found elsewhere. That upper right portion of the diagram is actually Los Angeles County. It does suggest that the economic costs of this shutdown started to outweigh the economic benefits in the minds of a lot of citizens. Now, we do have to be very careful. It does ignore the considerable burnout that healthcare workers have felt during this entire pandemic. And so, what good are these estimates without doing a proper cost-benefit analysis? So by March 8th, Kern County had about 105,000 COVID-19 cases. The social distancing policies put into place in mid-March basically saved about 18,000 COVID-19 cases. So we had 18,000 fewer cases than we should have. By March 8th, we had 942 COVID-19 deaths. There would have been 128 more COVID-19 deaths if there were no social distancing policies. The data on hospitalizations are not great because it's hard to keep track of individual patients, but we had approximately 5,100 hospitalizations for COVID-19 over the course of the pandemic. There would have been about 1,000 more hospitalizations if we had never enacted any social distancing policies. And if we look look and take into account the fact that COVID-19 cases mandate that people take time off from work so you lose wages, that it's very costly to go into the hospital, and that there is value of a lost life, social distancing policies saved at least $1.34 billion in Kern County GDP. That's 2% of our GDP. That's massive cost savings. And a majority, around 75% of these benefits came before September, before the colored tier system was fully implemented. And so the colored tier system unfortunately did little to reduce cases, deaths, and hospitalizations, even though it was during the third wave, that winter surge that we faced that was incredibly uncomfortable. So we've looked at the savings from preventing COVID-19 outcomes. Now let's look at the economic loss. And we can look at these as job losses from January 2019 to December 2020 or February 2020 to December 2020. So right before the pandemic. We see that 1 in 25 people in Kern County has left the labor force. That means that they've retired or moved elsewhere. 1 in 15 people in Kern County has lost their jobs. But what we do see are that there are several sectors that have weathered this COVID-19 recession quite well. Construction. We know that construction was not going to halt because construction is based on future economic activity. That's a good indicator that we didn't see a drop in construction activity. We saw general merchandise stores, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Best Buys do very well as people decided to buy things to weather the social isolation that we were feeling. But if you look at leisure and hospitality and food service, which are restaurants and bars, they've lost nearly 1 in 4 workers here in Kern County. That's a considerable economic loss. And if we look at California GDP and assume that Kern County has similar losses to the rest of California, it's relatively unrealistic. We're looking at total economic costs of $1.32 billion. If we look at employment losses and calculate the wages these individuals were paid, so we're using that wage calculation for GDP, Kern County lost about $1.7 billion in GDP. And much of this loss comes from a few very large sectors: farming, trade, mining, administrative support, healthcare, namely the elective or ambulatory procedures, but leisure and hospitality. That was the biggest, the hardest hit sector in our economy. So we're looking at around $1.7 billion in GDP losses. We're looking at least $1.3 billion in savings from eliminating that worst COVID outcomes. Now, we understand that this ignores a whole host of other issues. Healthcare workers being burned out from high COVID cases and people refusing to wear masks or social distance or even take the most minimal of precautions. That's burning out a lot of healthcare workers. That's something that we have to take into consideration in the future. Long COVID, where 1/3 of people with mild or moderate COVID disease have long COVID symptoms, brain fog, lung issues for more than a month. Stress, anxiety, depression, which can be both higher from shutting down the economy and the illness. And unfortunately, we get the answer that there was no right answer. The government was in a bad place no matter what they did. If they prevented the disease, there were significant economic costs. If they ignored the disease, there would be significant healthcare costs. So there was no right answer. And so why are the benefits, why are these economic benefits so imprecisely measured? Well, if we had saved just an additional 22 deaths from not happening, that would provide nearly $200 million more in benefits. So that'd be $1.6 billion in cost savings. If we had prevented an additional 131 hospitalizations, that would have provided $20 million more in benefits. If we had prevented another 2,500 cases, that would have provided nearly $100 million more in benefits. So we see that we really benefited from preventing COVID, and the fact that we decided to stop wearing masks and move around much earlier than we should have actually reduced the economic benefits from these social distancing policies. And so here are just graphs. Here are 4 sectors of the economy that didn't really struggle too much during the COVID-19 pandemic. Food manufacturing, food and beverage stores, so your grocery stores, general merchandise stores, real estate rental and leasing. Compare this to the losses that we saw in leisure and hospitality, restaurants, ambulatory health care, and recreation and entertainment, where these levels will not return to pre-pandemic levels for a long time. Well, what good is looking at employment losses if we don't look at wages? So here is a table of Kern wages during different recessions. Here's a 2011, the 2007 to 2011 recession, where the 25th percentile wage is low-income workers, the 75th percentile wage is high-income workers. And anything highlighted in yellow is bad. So during that old recession, legal industry, protective services, food prep serving, and production saw wage decreases somewhere. On average, wages between 2009 and 2011 during that height of the recession rose by 10.6%. Remember, employment peaked in Kern County around 2010-2011. 25th percentile or low-income wages rose by 3.6%. 75th percentile or high-income wages rose by 15%. So even though there were wage losses felt mainly by those earning greater than $60,000 a year, we had a growing income gap. This is a traditional recession explanation, where recessions exacerbate income gaps. Well, let's look at wages during the COVID-19 recession. Again, yellow's bad. And you see that there's a lot more yellow, or a lot more wage losses from this COVID-19 pandemic. On average, wages rose by only 2%, so there was very little income growth. Low-income wages, however, rose by 7.3%. High-income wages rose by 0.9%. So it seems to be skewed compared to how traditional recessions impact wages. We see here that this is some of the impact of previous stimulus packages, namely the PPP program, where subsidies helped to maintain low worker wages and employment. However, if we take a look at the industries with some of the lowest wage growth, they are paid at or near the minimum wage. So actually that wage growth, that 7.3% wage growth, was not due to them weathering the recession well, the COVID-19 recession well, but from the statutory increase in the minimum wage between 2019 and 2020. If you take out those who were paid up to the new minimum wage, 25th percentile or low income wage growth was only 1.6%. This recession is something absolutely new. It's something we have not seen in at least over a century. It's uniformly affecting the income distribution except for the ultra wealthy, those who are in the top 10 or top 5% of income in California. No one has been immune to the effects. And the biggest high income losers were legal occupations, media, art, healthcare support, and transportation. So what can we expect? Well, since a majority of the wage growth was due to minimum wage increases, expect us to see a significant widening of that income gap, that wage gap, as we recover, which has a whole host of socioeconomic issues. We probably should expect a long, slow recovery. If we get back faster, that's great, but we shouldn't expect that to be the new normal. If you look, in Kern County, the 5-year home ownership rate is 57%. That's compared to about 66% for the U.S. We are 222nd out of 381 metro areas in the country for low-income debt to income. With relatively lower home ownership rates in Bakersfield relative to the United States, this means that savings rates in Kern County are low and debt is high in Bakersfield. That will inhibit economic growth. So we understand that there are considerable issues, but as we slowly move towards more reopenings with more vaccinations, the future is going to grow ever brighter. Thank you, and I hope to see you in person soon.
You're made for more. That's why we offer more ways to care for you at every stage of life. With 3 hospital locations, we offer more across Kern County for your complete health and safety. Adventist Health.
Ernest Hemingway wrote The Old Man and the Sea at 52. Satchel Paige was still dominating batters at 59. Celia Cruz was still winning Grammys at 77. John Wheeler illuminated our ideas of the universe at 70. And Roger Crouch was 56 when he first went into space. Your best is yet to come.
You're made for more. That's why we offer more ways to care for you at every stage of life.
Can I get a little bit, can I get a little bit more from you?
With 3 hospital locations, we offer more across Kern County for your complete health and safety. Adventist Health.
Ernest Hemingway wrote The Old Man and the Sea at 52. Satchel Paige was still dominating batters at 59. Celia Cruz was still winning Grammys at 77. John Wheeler illuminated our ideas of the universe at 70. And Roger Crouch was 56 when he first went into space. Your best is yet to come.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Kern Economic Summit. My name is Nyakundi Micheka, and I'm an Associate Professor of Economics at California State University, Bakersfield, and I co-direct the Center of Economic Education and Research. And thank you for joining us this evening. So my presentation is going to touch on 3 broad issues. The first thing we'll talk about is we're going to look at how consumers were behaving here in Kern County in terms of where they were going and where they were shopping and where they were dining. The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at employment and housing and energy and how those changed during the pandemic period. And then we're going to look at a few ideas and see where we're headed in terms of the environment and how that affects solar energy production. So, you know, a few things happened right around March 19th last year. You know, we were in a pandemic and there were some orders to stay home. And at the time, a lot of us rushed to buy a few things. There were, people running in to buy toilet paper, hand sanitizer. We saw a lot of baby wipes, diapers were in very much demand. And those of us who stayed home actually saw an increase in purchases, or actually those of us who knew were going to work from home saw us spending more money in buying monitors, buying office equipment like chairs, printers, and so on and so forth. And then those who got a chance to stay home, again, found ways to buy things such as bakeware or cookingware and yeast. So a lot of things happened, and interestingly enough, the demand for certain commodities went down, especially when you look at the market and some of the goods that were being bought online. Luggage, for example, tuxedos, cameras. We saw men's formal wear demand go down, as you see in the graph that is on the screen right now. All the stuff that shows red toward the bottom shows how demand for those products declined during that COVID-19 period right around March 2020. So interestingly enough, let's take some time and look at where people were shopping here in Kern County. So one of the more interesting things about driving and when you're using your map or using a GPS is that you can tell where there's traffic. And cell phones sort of have a way of tracking where you are or how much traffic there is. And using that same technology, some companies out there have been able to track or trace where people have been going to in certain locations. So in Bakersfield, we decided to say, let's look at where people went for shopping, especially during the March 2020 period, and see which grocery stores people were going to. Now, if you look at that map, you'll find that the WinCos all the way up at the north and all the way down in the south had a combined traffic data of about 250 people visited these stores. The Vallarta all the way down south Bakersfield also had a large number of people. And then if you look at the east side of Bakersfield, the Walmart saw about 99,000 visitors in March 2020. So interestingly enough, these stores that are located all the way, or that surround Bakersfield all the way at the periphery, saw a large increase in traffic. That's where we saw a lot of shelves that were empty in some of those products that I talked about. Now, one may ask, where did we see the least traffic? So if the most traffic was outside, probably the least traffic or the lesser traffic was inside. as this map shows, some of the stores that were located within the central part of Bakersfield saw less consumer traffic for goods. You might see Aldi's there, you might see Foodmax, you might see again Aldi's, but this here sort of summarizes where we saw a lot of consumer traffic. Now, interestingly enough, it would be nice to see what dining patterns looked like, or how people changed where they went to eat. And what we'll do is we're going to compare the number of restaurant visits in December 2019, that's not last year, but the year before, 2019, and compare the number of visits in March 2020 and see how those numbers changed. Well, interestingly enough, right around Stockdale, the highest traffic or consumer traffic for dining is located right around Stockdale and California. The Chick-fil-A that you have right there in the In-N-Out saw about 82,000 visitors and about 71,000. So 150,000 folks visited that particular area. And then going all the way west to BJ's, you'll see about 44,700 folks visited there. The In-N-Out all the way down in the south also had about 54,000 visitors. So that's a lot of folks who are visiting these places. This is pre-pandemic, okay? So let's look at how these numbers changed during March 2020 when the stay-at-home orders were issued. And you'll see a large reduction in some of these places, and in other places you're not going to see too much of a reduction. So this map here, so if you look at Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A went from 82,000 to about 61,000. So 20,000 less people visited Chick-fil-A right around that time. The In-N-Out burger right there also saw a large reduction in folks, but there was still a large number of people who went to these places despite the lockdown orders. The restaurants, such as BJ's, we've seen these were, they were not open at the time, and that's why that is crossed out from the list. The McDonald's also on the 58 also saw a number of folks, 30,000 people visiting compared to 36,000. So summarizing this, you can see that on average, most of these fast food restaurants and restaurants saw a decline of about 20,000 less people. 20,000 less people visited this place, except for the In-N-Out on Panama Lane and the McDonald's, which is on the 58, which I just talked about. So those ones saw a modest decrease of about 8,500 or about 6,000 people. So people stopped visiting these places. Now let's look at employment, and what we'll do here is we're going to look at employment changes, and we're going to say, well, let's look at the employment in March 2019 and look at the employment in March 2020 and take the difference between those two and see, how things were looking. So total employment, if you look at the first part of 2020, we saw that there was an increase in employment in January and February, but as we proceeded towards the year, you'll find that May and August and September were very, very big in terms of a decline in the number of people employed. We saw about 58,000 people not be employed in May and about 50,000 people in September. So May and September was when we saw a lot of these employment changes. If we were to look at now employment by sector, which is farm employment, still May and September are our big ones where we saw a decline in employment, but also the month of August saw a decline of about 25,000. So August and September, changes in employment in the farm sector marked about 50,000 people were less employed at the time. Health and social assistance, quite interesting, different scenario here. January, February, March saw an increase in employment, year-to-year employment, but then once April hit, we saw a decline of about 5,300 folks, and then that number sort of eased out and went into December, but the numbers here were much less than, the 5,000, the 5,000 that was experienced in April. So the same cell phone data that I talked about earlier on can also be used to track activity, traffic or mobility trends in Kern County. So if you look at the graph there, the first part shows how much people drove, how much people walked, and how much transit traffic there was in January 2020. And you'll see that the graph dips, and that dip means that there was less walking, less driving, and less transit right around March. And then as we now started going into 2020, into the mid-2020, we saw an increase in walking. In fact, walking has increased by 60%, almost 60%. There's 60% more people walking compared to January 2020. That's a big number. That's pretty awesome. The other thing is driving also went up by about 34%, and then transit declined. So there are 30,000 less people on transit transport compared to what they were in January 2020. Very interesting numbers, and they tell a little story. On to housing. Now, housing is quite interesting. Now, we're going to look at what has been happening in Kern County and compare that with our regions. So the first thing is that the median prices of homes in Kern County as of January 2020 were about $302,000. That's the highest we've ever seen. In fact, the closest, the time that prices were that close was in June of 2006 when we clocked about $298,000. So home prices are the highest they've been ever. If you were to look at what's happening in California, which is the blue graph, the prices are about $700,000. So Kern County home prices or median prices are about, well, slightly less than half. If you were to look at Kern County and say, well, I want to buy a house in my neighboring counties or the neighboring counties, well, interestingly enough, if you look at the contiguous counties or the neighboring counties right around Kern County, you'll find that only in Kings County do you find prices that are lower than those of Kern County. In fact, if you were to go clockwise from Kings and go to Tulare, San Bernardino, Los Angeles, Ventura, and Santa Barbara, prices literally increase as you go clockwise. In fact, by the time you get to San Luis Obispo, where prices are $700,000, or Monterey, which are $900,000, you'll find that prices literally increase, of course, as you get closer to the water. But then, on average, our $302,000 median price is quite low relative to our neighbors. So that makes our houses quite affordable, and that's probably why you're seeing a very big increase or a large increase in demand for our houses. So what does that mean? It just means that the time on market, or in other words, the time between which you put your house out there on an ad and the time when you close the house or the seller closes has actually decreased to about 12 days. On average, this number has been quite low. In fact, as of October 2020 or November 2020, this number was about 8 days. It took about 8 days between when you actually put your house out in the market and when it was actually sold. 8 days is quite short. And right now, as of January, we're about 12. It took about 60 days for this to happen in the 90s. And if you're to average all these periods, this number has probably been about 40 days. So we're seeing a very, very large increase in demand, and it takes a very quick time to sell your house. Now, is this trend slowing? No. In fact, the new building permits that we're seeing has actually gone up. If you were to compare 2019, the number of permits bought in 2019 versus the number of permits bought in 2020 for each month, you'll find that as we proceeded, January, February, and March, 2019 numbers were much higher than the 2020. But then as we got to May and April, May all the way to December, we found that the number of permits or the demand for housing went up. As of December last year, there were 193 permits, new building permits that were issued compared to 105. That's almost twice the number. So in short, what we're saying is that demand for housing has gone up. There's new construction coming up, and this trend has been picking up for the last couple of years, and we're breaking a lot of records. So why is housing important? Well, housing has actually become a bigger player in Kern County's GDP. As of 2001, housing, real estate market, and insurance contributed to about 14% of GDP in Kern County. Fast forward to 20 years later, this number went from 14% all the way down to 20% almost, right? Actually, the number is 18%. So housing is playing a much bigger role in Kern County's GDP. And that's why you see I have put, the graphs here show the yellow stuff is what I'm talking about. And then the mining, oil and gas extraction has actually declined from 17% down to 10% over 20 years. Okay? So a lot of things are happening. Ag, forestry, and fishing has gone up from 3% and it has gone up to 9%. So housing is quite important in as much as oil and gas. So talking about oil and gas, let's see what is actually happening in the oil and gas market. So as of 2018, for every 100 barrels of oil that are produced in California, 70 of them on average are produced from Kern County. So 70% of the oil is produced in Kern County. That number has been that way for a long time. In fact, the number of oil wells that are in Kern County are about 44,000. Well, not 44 a few years, but it's now 41,000. And if you were to add up all the other counties and total all the oil wells that are in existence in those counties, you'll find that that number is 11,000. So Kern County by itself, 41,000 wells. All the other counties combined, 11,000. So we are, out there, and we're really producing a lot of oil, and that is also evidenced by the number of wells. So looking forward, or rather not looking forward, but looking at where we've come from, this has actually, we're seeing a lot of changes here in terms of employment, and over the last year, the 7,000 or the 9,000 employees that we've had in the oil industry have also seen changes, especially during the pandemic. So this graph here is very similar to the ones we saw out there, but on average we're seeing about 2,000 less jobs each month as we have been moving, as we've come from January 2020 to December 2020. And interestingly enough, in the oil industry, the mining employment has actually lost more jobs in September through to December. So that is the period where we've seen a lot more less jobs in the oil and mining sector. So interestingly, a lot of folks have asked, oil prices change in Kern County, and there's always been a discussion as to where do oil workers go, right? In fact, where do the oil workers come in from and work here, and where do they go when oil prices change? So the US Census Bureau puts out this very, very good data which tracks employment and tracks employees as they move from job to job across states. So most of our oil workers that work here in Kern County come from Texas, North Dakota, Colorado, and lately a lot of them come from Arizona. Quite interesting. And when oil prices change or things happen and they have to move, they move back to those states. Actually, most of them stay here in town. Well, not 10, but stay in the state of California. And then others move to Texas, North Dakota, and Colorado. The ones who choose to stay usually find a job in a different sector here in Kern County. One of the biggest sectors where we see oil and gas workers move to is the construction sector, transportation and warehousing sector, and others moving to admin support and waste management and remediation services. Quite interesting. So we're seeing a lot of commonality here in where the oil workers come from and where they go and what the makeup of those economies are. So as we move here, as we're thinking ahead, a couple of things have been happening. We've seen quite a number of forest fires. Each year, there are a lot of forest fires out there, and it's important for us to really understand that once we have fires out there, fires usually produce particulate matter, PM2.5. These are small particles which go into the air, and if you have too many of these, we probably see cloudy days and things like that. Well, interestingly enough, that affects the efficiency of solar panels. So there's a graph out here that was put out by the US Energy Information Administration, and this graph here shows, as of 2020, the smoke that was produced by the fires last year actually reduced solar energy production in the state of California. Okay? And this is quite evident. So if you were to do this and look at the graph, you have the black map, the black line on the graph that shows you the number of fires, or the time that the PM2.5 was a lot. And of course you have the July 4th peak when you have a lot of fireworks, so that usually affects solar production by a little bit. But then as you look at the graph and you move towards August, you're going to see the August complex fire and the North complex fire, which started in August 18th and August 16th, and that caused a lot of particulate matter to be out there in the atmosphere, which ultimately affected solar energy generation. This is not an anomaly. In fact, one of my students, Julie, who's worked on some of this data, has put some of these slides together, and you'll notice that as you look at solar production and you look at the incidence of fires or PM2.5, you'll see that there's an inverse relationship between the fires that we have in the state and solar energy production. This is quite interesting as we move forward, because we are seeing more and more of fires taking place going forward. That will bring me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
We are these fields. We are these roots. We see the beauty in the everyday, with pride from where we came. We look ahead to the places that pull us together, to the places that we call home. We started here in the valley and look forward to what lies ahead. Valley Strong Credit Union. Grow your possibilities.
In just 8 minutes, energy from the sun reaches the earth. We take it from there. Energy should be clean, cheap, and dependable, day and night. 8 Minutes projects in Kern are proving that solar, paired with battery storage, can do just that. Building on the region's long history in energy innovation and leadership, the future of energy is being shaped right here. 8 Minutes Solar Energy is committed to working with partners and communities across Kern County to achieve this vision while creating long-lasting economic growth.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for the 2021 Kern Economic Summit. I'm Nick Ortiz, the President and CEO of the Greater Bakersfield Chamber, and we're proud to again partner with Kern EDC and CSUB to present this year's program. The past year has been a challenge for our nation and region, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. We're beginning to see the pandemic ebb and the economy reopen. There's still much to do to ensure that our businesses and industries can not only survive, but thrive in the future. For a look at the trends shaping the economy, we've asked Dr. Chris Thornburg, a dynamic economic researcher and speaker, to provide this year's keynote address. Dr. Thornburg is the founder of Beacon Economics and is regarded as an expert and sought-after commentator on California's economy.
Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back with the Kern County Economic Summit. My name is Chris Thornburg. I'm with Beacon Economics, and I'm here to talk a little bit about the economy. The last time I was with you was a couple of years ago, and needless to say, a few things have happened since then. And today's conversation is really about what the COVID pandemic means for the U.S. economy as we move through 2021 and into 2022. On that basis, I really have three big themes I want to bring to you today. The first theme has to do with the nature of the recession. Pandemic first hit the U.S. economy, there was a general panic, and a lot of forecasters predicted an incredibly nasty downturn in the U.S. economy. The word depression had been tossed around all sorts of times, and candidly, none of that rhetoric was right. This was a completely different kind of business cycle than the Great Recession was. This was a supply shock driven, of course, by the pandemic itself. And there's no doubt that the pandemic, of course, had tragic consequences. It was very much like a natural disaster at the global level. But natural disasters historically do not have long-run economic consequences. In other words, as bad of a situation as this was, we were almost guaranteed a relatively rapid recovery at the back end of the situation. Now, the second thing, of course, had to do with the political reaction to, of course, the situation. In the run-up to that very contentious election last year, the forces were aligned to create a situation by which the federal government and the Monetary Reserve actually overreacted to, of course, the situation, by which I mean they use excessive degrees of fiscal and monetary policy. Now, this is taking a fast recovery and making it a rocket-type recovery. We're expecting the economy to absolutely take off in the second half of 2021 as a result of this. But the excessive degree of monetary and fiscal policy will also create instabilities in the economy in the next expansion. Instabilities such as the potential for another financial bubble, the potential for inflation, and let's not remember we have long-run fiscal problems having to do with the unsustainability of Medicare and Social Security as those programs exist right now. Now, the last thing, we also heard, of course, all sorts of hyperbolic predictions about what the new normal was going to be. If you had listened to the headlines, you would have assumed that everybody would be living in a cave. No one's ever going to be with anybody ever again after this because people are going to be so scarred as a result of the pandemic. That's not right. Look, epidemics have been with humanity since the dawn of civilization. And again, history shows us that people do not climb into a cave and never look back as a result of these sort of situations. But with that in mind, it is important to think about what this pandemic will mean for the U.S. economy inasmuch as it has accelerated underlying long-run trends that were already in place. And this is something that policymakers and, of course, business people need to be paying attention to. So, with that in mind, let's think about what happened over the course of the last year. I like to think about the pandemic recession in 4 different parts. The first part, of course, was when the virus really started taking off in spring of last year. That is when we had the initial downturn in economic activity, as everybody, of course, went into a panic. People fled to their homes. We all ran out of toilet paper. You remember just how dramatic the story was. And there was a fantastic decline in economic activity like we've never seen before. It was absolutely one of the deepest downturns we've ever seen. But what a lot of economists didn't appreciate was the force of mitigation. Look, people, businesses, they don't just sit in their hands and wait for someone to save them. They figure it out. How am I going to live my life? How am I going to run my business? They're not going to sit there and wait. And that's exactly what began to happen in May. You started to see the bounce back in economic activity still in the second quarter of this particular year. Now, to put this in context, this was the deepest recession in economic history. It was also the shortest. Recessions are measured peak to trough. That's February to April. This was a 2-month recession. And you know, right through the end of 2020, we saw a substantial bounce back in economic activity as a result of those mitigation forces. How much did we come back? Well, by the beginning of this year, we were only about 3.8% off trend. To put that in context, that means that we did substantially better than any of the government forecasts had predicted, and indeed many of the big investment banks as well. By the end of the year, we had regained 70% of the lost economic activity that occurred in the midst of that initial panic. Now, we are in the midst of course, the vaccine rollout. And when that happens, of course, it will bring us to the next phase of the recovery. This is the post-COVID part of the recovery, when we finally close the rest of that output gap. And there are a lot of questions about how rapid this is going to take place. The government still says it's going to be very slow, but if you pay attention to most of the professional forecasts, they've gotten back on the train, and they are acknowledging just how fast of a recovery this is going to be. And then, of course, when we get to that full recovery, we get back on long-run trends for economic growth, we will be moving into that next expansion. Lots to talk about. Let's get right through it. So what did happen last year? Look, we know it was a very tough year for a lot of the service sector. Restaurants, hotels, bars, travel, conferences. These were largely closed down right through the end of the year. But to just pay attention to those sectors kind of misses the picture. It was very much a winner-loser type recovery. For example, take a look at retail sales, take a look at consumer spending. People couldn't take their family to Disneyland. They couldn't take that honeymoon trip to Paris. So what did they do? Well, they went out and bought a camper and did a week trip around the national parks. Or maybe they bought bikes for everybody and they took a biking trip across the Midwest. In other words, you saw a big shift of spending from services to goods. And while the service part of the economy was still substantially down by the end of the year, the goods part of the economy was through the roof. Again, a winner-loser type recovery. The winners are listed on the right-hand side here. Number one winner, of course, was online retail. A lot of sales moved online. Amazon can't build warehouses fast enough at this particular point in time. But it wasn't just them. The sporting goods stores. If you tried to buy a bike over Christmas, good luck to you, because there were none available. Hardware stores are busy. Auto dealers were very busy by the end of the year. Parts of the economy were actually doing very, very well. Again, this is completely different than the Great Recession, where the vast majority of the economy was suffering as a result of the general decline in demand we saw back then. And of course, with the goods part of the economy coming back, so too did economic production. You know, to put this in context, it took 4 years for industrial production to recover as much as it did in the first 6 months of this particular recovery. And of course, because of that rapid recovery, you've seen a big bounce back in goods trades. The ports are busy. They're trying to catch up. Inventories in the business sector in the U.S. are still below long-run trend levels, and you can see it in terms of all the congestion out there. The shipping industry wasn't ready for this huge bounce back in overall goods trades, and there's a lot of problems in our supply chains right now as a result of that ferocious bounce back. And of course, ag also did very well. Obviously, important part for Kern County. You can see the big uptick in prices that occurred towards the end of last year. And overall, ag exports from the state of California were very, very good in 2020, on par, actually a little better than they were back in 2021. those global trade flows really driving a lot of the success going on. Now, as already noted, some sectors could not come back. No matter how much people mitigated, the recreation sector was never going to come back until Disneyland and, of course, music events started reopening. Hotels, of course, particularly those around fly-in attractions such as Disneyland, remained, of course, largely empty as a result of this. And, of course, let's not forget restaurants and bars that in many cases were closed down completely or had to operate only in an outdoor environment. Well, the good news, of course, are these vaccines that are being rolled out right now. And yes, it was a little bit of a slow rollout. There was a lot of frustration for folks, but we're running 2 million doses per day right now. And according to the numbers, by the end of May, every adult in the United States should have access to one of these vaccines. And to put this in context, here's some research that came out from Goldman Sachs just a few days ago. Right now, if you look at the people who have been vaccinated and you sort of overlay that with people who've actually had COVID, you'll find that about 50% of the population at this point in time has resistance to this disease. Remember that herd immunity occurs at a 65 to 70%. In other words, we are just weeks away from being truly over the COVID situation here in the United States. And you could see it in a number of cases. At the beginning of the year, we were running 230,000 cases per day on a weekly average. Well, just over the last few days, it has dropped to about 55,000, a 75% decline in cases. This is why, of course, much of the country is now in the process of reopening, including here in California, where a lot of areas in the state have already moved into the red zone. Restaurants are reopening. Life is starting to get back to normal. And it was also a pretty good year for businesses and for business investment. You know, on the right-hand side are profits in the U.S. economy. And you can see there was almost no profit hit as a result of this particular situation. Oh, sure, some parts of the economy got hit, but remember, other parts of the economy did very well. And on net, non-financial profits, they took a big dip in the second quarter and they bounced back ferociously in the third quarter. And the same thing with financial profits, almost no problem in our financial markets, good steady numbers there. Again, when you look at this, it looks nothing like the Great Recession. It's a much better recovery, much quicker recovery than we experienced back then. And of course, you look at the left-hand side, you look at business investment type of investment, yet again, you get that kind of winner-loser type situation. Top of the list, well, not surprisingly, we're all doing our talks on Zoom now, so there was a big surge in spending on information technology equipment, and of course there was a big surge in spending on software. But along with that was another big surprise for those pessimists who told us how bad things were going to be. The housing market took off like nobody's business last year, and that, of course, strength is continuing into 2021. Now, it wasn't all good news. At the very bottom of the list, of course, one of the biggest declines in business investment we saw last year was investment, of course, in oil. The oil industry was already suffering from a glut. Of course, they got hit by a big decline in demand as everybody started staying in their homes and not driving as much. And as a result of that, of course, there was a huge pullback in drilling new wells across the United States. Not much of a big surprise. But again, you could see how things have bounced back. The oil markets, for example. Do everybody remember at the beginning of this thing, there was a point in time where oil prices in the United States went into negative territory. That was a result of the fact that there was simply no capacity left. They were literally paying people to take oil away from them because there was too much for them to hang on to. Now, since that point in time, oil prices are back. They're up to about $60 a barrel. Looks like good news for the industry, but I would take a step back and recognize that while that is a good sign, we also have to remember there's still a lot of excess capacity in the industry. U.S. production is still about 20% below where it was pre-pandemic, and you know that production can come back very quickly. In other words, we still have issues with glut in the oil markets, and I'm not sure just how sustainable these prices are. But take a look at something else that's important for Kern County. Here's some venture capital numbers for overall Southern California. Venture capital had a banner year in 2020, and that was particularly true across Southern California, particularly true right here, of course, in Kern County itself. Virgin Galactic got a couple big venture capital funds, and of course, out in Inyo firm, COSO operating company also was another big venture capital winner over the course of the year. You could see a lot of optimism about the future of the U.S. economy, about the future of the current economy, and of course, investors are putting their money where their mouth is. Now, what about that housing market? You know, we came into 2020 with a lot of pessimistic views about housing. Housing was already in a downturn. Some of the headlines rang in the New York Times and everything else. Now, it was true in 2019 the housing markets were relatively soft. But that, of course, was driven not so much by anything fundamentally wrong in our housing markets. That's what happened during the Great Recession and, of course, the subprime bubble. What was going on in the housing markets was nothing more than the change in tax laws that made the write-up of your interest payments a little less generous, and, of course, the increase in interest rates. It was logical for the housing market to take a bit of a breather, if you will. But you came into this year, we hit, of course, the pandemic. Suddenly, everybody looked around their apartment or their house and said, I don't have enough room. And wow, did interest rates drop. It created a frenzy in demand for housing. And remember, this is a housing market that was already supply constrained. That has turned into a massive increase in activity in the housing markets. You saw sales jump up to about 6 million at an annualized basis by the end of 2020. That's on par with the kind of housing activity that was occurring during the subprime bubble. Home prices accelerated across the board in every part of the U.S. economy. Even Vegas, which is one of the hardest hit economies for obvious reasons, saw home prices accelerate from 2.6% growth in the previous year to 7.9% over the course of 2020. Now, it isn't just, of course, some of the changes, if you will, in the short-run dynamics. I want more space, interest rates are low. It also had to do with the fact that we have been moving back to more home ownership over the course of the last few years. And that continued. In fact, it accelerated a bit over the course of 2020. Now, is it a bubble? That's the other thing people are asking. Are we in trouble of this thing getting out of hand and having another housing meltdown in a couple of years? Absolutely not. Take a look at the right-hand side of the screen here. This is mortgage payments. This is in the aggregate for the entire United States. This is mortgage payments as a percent of disposable personal income. You know, when you think about what happened in the post-Dodd-Frank world, mortgage markets have been largely constrained. People were very conservative in their borrowing, and as a result of that, mortgage debt growth was very, very slow. When you combine that with, of course, falling interest rates, you had a situation where before, of course, the Great Recession, mortgage payments as a percent of disposable personal income had been above 7%. We came into the pandemic with that at a record low of 4%. In other words, from a debt perspective, this is still a very, very affordable housing market. Well, of course, everybody's refinancing, taking advantage of those ultra-low interest rates, and this has dropped even lower still. At this point in time, we are the least housing cost constrained nation we've ever seen since we started collecting this data 40 years ago. That's not a bubble market. This is a market that has a lot of headroom on prices. Don't worry about it, at least not yet. Never know what's going to come down the pike at us. As for apartments, they got hit a bit. You've seen vacancy rates drift up, rents have come down. Again, not quite like those crazy headlines, rents falling 30% in San Francisco. Not true. But clearly there's softness in the multifamily market. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that, well, A, people aren't moving all that much because of the pandemic, and B, there has been a movement into home ownership. In other words, a little softness would be expected. Now, you've heard something different. The ongoing headline on this is that 30 to 40 million people are on the verge of being evicted at any particular point in time, which is why there's been moratoriums on evictions put in place across the United States. And indeed, the federal government tried to do a federal moratorium on evictions, although that was shot down because, as it turns out, the federal government doesn't have that particular power. But there's no evidence of this. This goes back to the miserablism that lies at the heart of politics and the press today. The idea that you have to look at any situation, and if you are going to be one, if you're going to be in the team, not only do you have to tell everybody that the glass is half full, you have to explain to them that's emptying rapidly. In other words, panic no matter what. And that's exactly what these kind of headlines represent. Nothing resembling reality. A bit of a hit, sure, but on the right-hand side, here's some data from the National Multifamily Housing Council. It suggests that only about 2% of renters aren't paying their mortgages right now relative to last year. Again, that is not a situation that will cause 30 to 40 million people to be evicted. It's kind of kooky, but that's the world we live in, where the conversation in the newspapers and the conversation our politicians are having are completely different than the basic data that tells us what's really going on in our economy today. Now, here in California, an even more dramatic situation. Remember, we came into this with one of the tightest housing markets in the entire nation, and it just got tighter. You know, in the midst of the hottest part of the pre-Great Recession housing bubble, at one point in time we only had about 2 months supply. That is an incredibly tight market. Well, guess what? Over the course of the last few weeks, it has dropped to 1 month supply. Stories of 40 offers coming in one house are not inaccurate. That is the case in many situations. Sales are up. Of course, prices are up very strongly across the state. Here in Kern County, they just crossed 300,000. First time they hit that barrier ever. So again, you can see the strength here as well. And of course, that's relatively good news for the construction part of the economy. While commercial is a little bit soft right now, the housing market has been booming along. Indeed, you saw as many permits in 2020 here in Kern County as you had in 2019. Very good news, because housing is what this state needs. And again, a little bit of a bump in 2020. We should all be glad about that. But let's also remember something else. When Gavin Newsom became governor of the state of California, he promised millions of new housing units in order to, of course, backfill this incredible supply shortage. Well, nothing has occurred on that scale. The only thing you can say about 2020 was that we didn't see a decline in new home building. Of course, at the state level, they've completely dropped the ball on trying to actually fix our housing market to build enough supply. And you certainly saw it in the data. And for 2020, we saw the record number of people leaving California, moving to other states. In absolute terms, the greatest outflow of population of any of the states. In relative terms, the 6th worst trend, of course, in the United States. Don't focus on the short-run issues of eviction. Focus on the long-run issues of more housing supply. That's what we need to be talking about right now. Now, with all this good news, we have to talk about, of course, employment, the bad news. Now, I leave this to last mainly because I want you to get a sense of just how strong this recovery has been and the kind of underlying momentum it has. This is important because, of course, whenever anybody wants to talk about how bad the economy is, the first thing they talk about is the labor markets. And they look grim, there's no doubt about it. We have 9 million fewer jobs today than we did pre-pandemic, and that's a rough number. There are a lot of workers, as strong as recovery is, there are a lot of workers, of course, and their families who are still suffering as a result of the lack of employment. Now, a little bit of good news here as well. For example, most of these folks, over half, are in 2 sectors. One, of course, is leisure and hospitality. That's restaurants and hotels. And remember, things are just about to reopen again. A lot of those jobs will come back. And then the other big part of that is local government. That, of course, has to do with the fact that our school districts closed, and as a result of the districts not being open, a lot of the secondary employment that occurs in public schools has not come back as well. Well, again, we are weeks away from schools reopening and those jobs coming back. So you can already see over the next few months that we're going to see hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new jobs re-entering the U.S. economy as we continue to move forward. Again, it sounds like good news. And another way of thinking about this, well, on the left-hand side here is unemployment in the United States. They've broken it down into 2 types of unemployment. It's the temporary layoff versus the truly unemployed, people who don't have a job prospect in front of them. The reason I bring this up is at the beginning of this, when unemployment hit 15%, this is what largely caused a lot of those major negative forecasts. After all, history suggests that when unemployment goes up, it takes a long time to come down. But again, this is a completely different kind of business cycle, and it was a completely different type of unemployment. The vast majority of people who lost their job at the beginning of this didn't lose their jobs. They were on temporary layoff. They had a job, they were just waiting to be able to go back to it. Now, many of those people did. A few of those people lost their jobs. Other jobs have formed inside the U.S. economy. And the net result of that is the share of people on temporary layoff is still about 2%. Outside the last 12 months, by far and away the highest level we've ever seen in the United States still. As for those who are truly unemployed, who don't have a job waiting for them, that number is about 5%. And to put that in context, for 5 years it was over that amount after the Great Recession hit. And of course, even in the mild tech recession, it was only about 5.5%. What this says, of course, is that this massive natural disaster called the pandemic created a very mild recession in the U.S. economy, not, of course, this depression-type situation that a lot of folks had described it as. And take a look at the right-hand side here. This is the job openings number in the U.S. economy. Again, a completely different type of situation. For years, it took years for job openings to return to pre-recession levels after the Great Recession. They barely dropped this time. We're just a few percent below where we were pre-pandemic because, again, while some parts of the U.S. economy are suffering, other parts actually can't find enough people. A lot of stories of certain parts of manufacturing, certain parts of, say, for example, the housing sector that can't even find enough employees. They are still having issues with labor shortages. Another way you can think about this has to do with incomes. Take a look at the left-hand side. This is the real median earnings for full-time employees in the United States. And look how that bounced over the course of 2020. What's going on here is really twofold. First of all, many of the jobs that were removed from the U.S. economy, even if temporarily, tended to be lower paid jobs, such as, for example, in restaurants. At the same time, those who kept their jobs actually saw a big increase in their pay last year. If you kept your job, you were likely to have seen a greater increase in your wage rate than you did from 2018 to 2019. And the result of that in an aggregate standpoint can be seen on the right-hand side. While jobs overall are still about 6% below where they were pre-pandemic, aggregate incomes have actually bounced back to where they were prior to the great pandemic. In other words, while we have to worry about those workers who don't have income, who don't have a job right now, in the aggregate, there's a tremendous amount of money being earned in the U.S. economy. And by the way, where is that money going? Well, for the most part, it's being saved. We're going to come back to that in just a second. Looking locally here, of course, Kern County wasn't hit anywhere near as hard as the state overall. Indeed, most of the Central Valley, whether you're thinking Stockton, Fresno, Sacramento, the Inland Empire, Bakersfield, the center part of the state was actually the strong part of the state through this pandemic. The reason for that, of course, is really a lack of exposure to tourism, the way they say that Orange County or LA has a huge tourism market. And some of it also has to do with the fact that the restrictions out here were a little less severe than they were along the coast when it came to how the government was intervening, if you will, inside the local economy. And, of course, the bounce back has also been pretty strong here. Unemployment right now in Bakersfield has come down. It's right now at this point in time about 2 percentage points higher than it was pre-pandemic. Again, really good trends, much quicker recovery than a lot of people were anticipating. Good news here. And, of course, if you look at the payroll numbers themselves, prior to the pandemic, there have been great trends here in the county. You've gotten close to 280,000 jobs before things hit. Obviously well below that right now, still about 8% off. Most of those jobs at this point in time, of course, again, are in those two sectors, local government and hospitality, jobs that are about on the verge of coming back quickly. Now, what about stimulus? What about this year? What happens at the end of this year? Well, this gets back to, of course, the fiscal and monetary policy overreactions that occurred. And a little context here I think is helpful. Take, for example, the fiscal stimulus plans. In total, the first one that happened last year, the CARES Act, of course, the small one, a little less than $1 trillion, that happened at the end of last year prior to the turnover administrations, and of course the one being put into place right now, another $2 trillion. You're talking about $5.1 trillion in stimulus. This is 4 times as much as we did during the Great Recession in the midst of what is a far less severe type recession. A $5 trillion. To put this in context, the U.S. economy produces $22 trillion of goods and services a year. This is an amount of 25% of GDP. It's an amazing amount of money to just stick into the economy. How much? Well, the first two stimulus plans replaced every dollar of lost earned income in the United States with over $2 of government support. Now we have another $2 trillion coming online. Remember, incomes are already back to where they were. Now you're talking about something on the order of $4, almost $4 in government support for every dollar of actually lost income. And it wasn't just the federal government that over-responded. The Federal Reserve has also gotten involved in a big way. They have done quantitative easing at a level that, well, even Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen never engaged in quantitative easing. And again, he is not fighting the same type of situation they were. Well, what does it all mean? Well, take a look at the left-hand side here. This is kind of a breakdown of household incomes, personal income in the United States. To put it in context, in in 2019, in the aggregate, all American households saved about $1.2 trillion. Last year, well, remember, most people actually saw an increase in their income if you hadn't actually lost your job. And then you had the federal government just fire hosing money across the economy through stimulus checks and expanded unemployment benefits and everything else at an incredible rate. Now remember, most of these families who got a paycheck, who got a stimulus check, well, they didn't actually need the money. In fact, their problem wasn't that they needed money, their problem was that they couldn't spend money because of the pandemic. When you give people money they can't spend, you're not actually helping the economy. You're not doing very much at that particular point in time. And when you look at what happened, the vast majority of the cash went right through households, right into the financial system. Last year, in 2020, American households in the aggregate saved $2.8 trillion, $1.6 trillion more. And remember, it isn't just, of course, households that got money. Businesses did too, through, of course, the PPP programs. Where did this money go? Well, again, right into the banking system. At this point in time, there looks to be about $2.5 trillion, trillion, in excess deposits in the commercial banking system in the United States. $2.5 trillion. Now, remember, all these numbers are here prior to the $2 trillion package that's being put into place right now. In other words, this economy is being stuffed with cash. Now, ask yourself, why do you think the stock market has the third highest PE ratio? Why do you think Bitcoin hit $64,000 a pop? When you have this kind of money sloshing around the economy, it creates distortions in financial markets, and you are seeing that firsthand. Again, it just doesn't make any sense. Here's a survey that was done about the stimulus checks that were mailed out to 150 million Americans after the CARES Act. What do people do with it even back then? 70% of people didn't spend it. They saved it or they paid down debt. Now remember, I get it. We all like these checks. It's free money, except for it's not free money. This money has been generated, of course, through the issuance of federal debt. This is not stimulus. This is an intergenerational mugging. We are enriching ourselves. Remember, we had the lowest housing debt burden in the history of the United States, and we are enriching ourselves further on the back of our children and grandchildren. This isn't right, yet there is no conversation about that anywhere in the news or seemingly anywhere in Washington, D.C. Spend, spend, spend. It's okay. Let our children and grandchildren pay it back. We don't care. That's not how you're supposed to run a country. Now again, how much money are we talking? There was $3 trillion in borrowing last federal fiscal year. And of course, with the $2 trillion plan being put into place right now, you're looking at something on the order of $4 trillion of new debt being issued there. $7 trillion of federal debt in 2 years. We've gone from below 100% net debt to GDP to well over 100% net debt to GDP in the United States. For what? For giving families money to save or pay down their debt. That's not what stimulus is supposed to be about. And to be clear, we already had a fiscal problem in our future. The CBO had already been predicting large increases in debt to GDP ratios as a result of boomers retiring and the huge expansion of spending on Medicare and Social Security. In other words, we were already heading for some sort of fiscal crisis, and we are slamming on the gas pedal to accelerate towards it even faster. This is not a good situation, and I do worry about it. Now, we got a bunch of years before we get to that particular point, but from a long-run standpoint, clearly what we are doing here is not good, and history will not look kindly on us and what we've done. And the Federal Reserve, the same sort of thing. They view this as an existential threat to the U.S. economy that never existed. And they quantitative easing, $3 trillion of quantitative easing poured into the economy. That was as much as Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen did over 6 years. Now, they weren't the only one. The European Central Bank and, of course, the UK Central Bank all did the same thing as well. But again, why? Remember, why did Janet Yellen and Ben Bernanke have to use so much quantitative easing? Well, they were dealing with the deflationary pressures of a collapsing financial bubble. You had major problems in the U.S. financial system. You had a collapse in household wealth. They had to pour money into the economy just to keep things stable. None of those things are happening right now. We've seen an acceleration in household wealth creation towards the end of last year. Of course we did. People saved $2.8 trillion in cash. And of course, as for the banking system, no loss of profits, no major problems in the debt markets, no major problem in the mortgage markets. He's fighting a war against an enemy that doesn't exist. Now, there are consequences to this. Not the consequences we've been seeing lately. Yes, interest rates have been drifting up and inflation's picking up a bit. But this is not being caused by all that loose cash. This is just financial markets acknowledging that we're getting back to normal quicker than people thought. Of course, interest rates are going to start approaching where they were pre-pandemic, and of course, prices were also going to start bouncing back. But take a look on the left-hand side here. The left-hand side, that top line, is what we call in economics a unit money supply. It's the amount of money in the system divided by GDP. And it's a good estimate of what's going to happen when kind of long-run inflationary pressures. The last time we had a lot of unit money supply was in the 60s and 70s, and you can see the big inflation that we had in that particular period of time. Now, over the next bunch of years, they pulled down that unit money supply, it drifted up a bit, and we never saw any kind of inflation. And a lot of economists have become, well, unconcerned about the potential. But look what this massive increase in money supply has done to that unit money. It has pushed it not only well above where it was a few months ago, it's pushed it to the highest it has ever been. Yes, this is inflationary, but not yet. The thing to keep in mind on the right-hand side is we are still not a capacity-constrained economy. And you need capacity constraint to get that inflation spiral kicking in. That'll be a couple of years from now, and the Federal Reserve has an opportunity to absorb some of this cash before it becomes inflationary. But that all depends on what they actually plan on doing. And much of the rhetoric coming out of the Federal Reserve right now seems to suggest that they are perfectly happy keeping their foot on the gas pedal no matter what. And yes, that does mean potentially a big inflation cycle happening in 2023 or 2024. I'm hedging my bets a little bit on this one because predicting inflation is one of the hardest things any forecaster can do. But I will tell you this, for the first time in 20 years, I believe inflation is a true risk to the U.S. economy. And if you want to know what that looks like, think about what happened in Volcker in the early part of the 1980s when he came in to break the last inflationary cycle and, of course, set off those early 1980 recessions. By the way, at that point in time, those were the worst downturns in the United States in the post-World War II period. Now, what about in the long run? Is there a new normal? Are people going to hide in caves? As already noted, no. Look, if you just look at people's behavior, they were doing things that health authorities didn't want them to do because they were so eager to go out and live their lives. And people aren't going to hide away, and we knew that. But it's going to accelerate underlying trends, and that is something we need to pay attention to. For example, we saw a big shift in sales, of course, to online retailers. This has been going on for a while. It's been accelerated, and it's time for policymakers, particularly here in the state of California, to figure out what to do with the excess amount of retail space we have. This nation has vastly too much retail space. It's time to repurpose it. Here in California, much of that retail space ought to be turned into housing at the very least, or maybe mixed use would be a way to go about doing it. Now, another conversation to have there is, what does that mean for local governments? One of the reasons here in California we have so much retail is, of course, local governments are dependent on those sales tax revenues. Well, look, the state needs to break that dependence on retail zoning. We need to think about how to repurpose this land in appropriate ways to fill the needs in this new economy. And of course, when we're talking about that, how about the work from home situation? Now, yes, a lot of people have been working from home, and no, not every business is going to go that way. You know, there are a couple tech companies in the Bay Area that suggested to their employees they may not go back to the office. They may just keep everybody virtual, and they almost had a riot on their hands. People don't want to be stuck home all the time. But we know that a lot more people will work from home. Here's some numbers that came out of the Atlanta Fed. Very interesting. Prior to the pandemic, about 5% of all workdays were done from home. In the midst of the pandemic, about 25% of all workdays. Post-pandemic, the surveys suggest about 15%. So not quite as high as during the pandemic, but still 3 times as high as it was pre-pandemic. It does not mean the office is dead. It does not mean downtown is dead. In fact, I would go the next step on that. Look, when you think about downtowns are generated by what we call a push and pull. The push, the desire to be downtown, is created by external economies of scale. Businesses want to be there because when you're downtown in a dense job zone, you have easier access to clients, easier access to vendors. You have a very liquid labor market that you can hire people out of as you need. In other words, it's a good place to do business. You're more productive, you're more profitable. That is offset by, of course, the high costs of being downtown, the higher cost of rent, the higher cost of the commute, the higher cost of all the things that happen because you are located in that dense job zone. Well, if you have a situation where there's a shrinkage in square foot per employee needs as a result of businesses, well, those folks, of course, mean less office space overall in downtown, which creates vacancies. That lowers the cost of downtown, and if the forces of agglomeration are as important now as they were before, and I think they are, that should actually pull businesses into downtowns. In other words, look for more people to work from home, but to have more of these dense job centers. This all means that suburban jobs, suburban office is going to suffer, and suburban retail is going to suffer. So it's really time to think about your downtown. And that, of course, is right here in Bakersfield. This is Kern County's downtown. It's time more than ever to reinvest here to take advantage of what I call those forces of agglomeration as we move through, again, the post-COVID world, through the post-COVID world. And the same thing on business travel. You know, people will never travel again. We'll all do things over, of course, a Zoom conference call. Well, they did a survey of business people, particularly those who travel. 58% said they're completely burned out by Zoom meetings. They hate them. They're not as good. They want to see people in person. 77% said the next conference I will go to is going to be in person. Of course, we are social creatures. You know why we go to conferences? Yes, because we can sit in front of the speaker, and it makes the speech that much more interesting, that much more engaging, that much more educational. But better yet, then you can go to the bar and have a drink with a couple of friends, and perhaps you'll see their speaker there and have an opportunity to ask some fun questions. It's about the interactions. People are going to do that. They're going to go back to that, so no, business travel isn't dead as well. And remember, last but not least, people don't want to be stuck in the home. They did this survey last year. 25% of people said they'd be okay working from home all the time. 33% said no more than 1 day per week. And I guarantee that 33%, the vast majority of them, have a child at home. So, wrapping it up. Look, the long run still matters, folks. This was not an existential threat to the U.S. economy. Yes, it was tragic, and our hearts have to go out to the families who've lost loved ones. But the V was the only logical outcome, and the V is exactly what is happening at this particular point in time. It's going to be one of the most rapid recoveries we've ever seen. And while we're talking about that, let's also note something else. We got lucky. Yes, it's a tragedy, the 500,000 Americans who've died, but when you think about the Spanish flu, that killed somewhere between 50 and 75 million people, and you compare that to the global population back in 1918, you realize that that was 100 times as deadly as COVID-19 has been. In other words, it could have been a lot worse. Let's make sure we're better prepared next time, that we have systems in place to do the right thing to not make the situation worse. The baseline forecast, it's going to be 5-6% Q1 and 11% Q2. We're going to be back on long-run trend by the beginning of next year. A new roaring 20s? Possibly. Remember, there is so much dry powder. There is so much money in this economy. This economy could take off at ways that we're not anticipating. You could have 2 years of incredibly aggressive, rapid growth. And yes, on the back end of that is a potentially overheated economy. That, of course, brings us to these wild cards. The short-run wild card, one of these variants that actually is resistant to the vaccines. Hasn't happened yet. I think we don't have to worry too much about that. But again, is there a new financial bubble? The stock market looks frothy. Bitcoin looks frothy. And housing is hot, not a bubble yet, but it could get there. We just don't know. And let's remember, of course, the long-run consequences of all this debt, all this money creation, interest rates, more public debt, potential for inflation. There's a lot of potential instabilities in the next expansion. In other words, pay attention. But the biggest issue, of course, has been miserabilism. And this is a word I've used for the last few times I've been with you. Again, the need to tell everybody the glass is half full and emptying rapidly. The consequences of miserabilism are apparent. We've overreacted in a fiscal and monetary sense. We're enriching ourselves on the backs of our children and grandchildren without even a pause, without even a blink, without even a thought about what we are doing to them. That, to me, is really, I think, one of the saddest parts of this entire episode. It's time to take a step back from this political extremism that has inflicted our political bodies from the state to the national level. It's time to move back to a data-based vision of the world where we allow reality to guide our conversations and our policies. Sadly, of all the good things that are about to happen, on this count, I don't have a lot of optimism. Thank you very much, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime.
On behalf of the Kern Economic Development Corporation, California State University Bakersfield, and the Greater Bakersfield Chamber, we'd like to thank you for joining us for the 2021 Kern Economic Summit. We'd like to thank our broadcast partners and the team at KGET TV17 for helping us bring this program to you. We also appreciate the incredible support from our generous sponsors, our platinum sponsors, Adventist Health Bakersfield and Kaiser Permanente. Our gold sponsors, 8 Minute Solar Energy and Valley Strong Credit Union. Our silver sponsors, Chevron, Dignity Health, Mercy Memorial Hospitals, Kern County, McPherson Energy, and Valley Republic Bank. Our bronze sponsors, Era Energy, Applied Technology Group, AT&T, Bitwise Industries, JVC Kenwood, Kern Family Healthcare, Ordees Melby Architects, the Taft College Foundation, and Wonderful Orchards. Thanks again to our speakers and sponsors. Have a good night.